We were musical. John and I had a little thing that was a little spark of something. The other guys were great musicians. We were a great little unit. I think the thing that I always thought about us was that we were kind of a little bit more artsy than the others. So John went to art school. I studied literature at school and got a kind of, an A level, called an A level. So I did Chaucer and Shakespeare. So it's a little bit slightly more artsy than the other guys in the other bands. So I thought we had an edge in that artsiness. The Beatles broke up. I think it was time. I always remember the old song Wedding Bells are breaking up, that old gang of mine, The Army Buddies, the band. And you've got to grow up, you've got to get married, you've got to get girlfriends and have babies and things, and you don't do that in a band. So I kind of think if you look at it, we really came full circle. It got a bit bitter towards the end. We had a sort of strange manager guy who came in from New York, and that got bitter. Got a bit of a feud thing going. So we started bitching at each other.
Did you record after you knew it was going to end?
There was a little bit of stuff, yeah, which wasn't bad stuff. Because we were still good musically. We just maybe a little tense as friends now.
When you got enormous, what was that to come to New York and I remember in Miami and a crowd?
It was fantastic. Yeah, it was really cool.
What did you make of it, though?
Well, I mean, we were kids who had looked at America as, the great country, like a lot of the world does, and you're British kids. Elvis Presley, is from here, or Motown, all the black artists that we loved are from here. And we don't have R&B radio stations like in England, it's sort of, good morning, and this is Elvis Presley singing his news. But here's like, so we just loved the radio stations, and it was just fantastic.
You mentioned Presley. What was that meeting like?
It was great. I love it. The thing is, it was so long ago. Yeah, we met with him in Los Angeles. My memories was that it was really quite straightforward, that we loved him. We were a little in awe of him.
Really?
He was the man, We'd grown up with him. We were just kids. So we were just that little bit younger. But the funny thing is, when we got together, me, George, and Ringo, for the Beatles anthology, got together to discuss it all, we all had completely different memories, which is terrible. That's time. He was trying to learn bass guitar, and me being the bass player, I thought, this is cool. Let me show you a couple of licks, Elvis. But I said, he came and met us at the door, and Ringo sort of said, no, he never stood up all evening. So it was, who's telling the truth? I am. But I remember him having the first remote control for a TV we'd ever seen.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a great story.
And he's just kind of, oh, it's changing. It seems like ancient history now, but it was very modern then. We arrived, we were in America, we were huge. I think we'd made a really cool move that I think George Harrison doesn't remember that we did it, but I remember sometime saying to Brian Epstein, our manager, we mustn't go to America until we've got a #1 record. A lot of British acts came here and were like second on the bill to people like Fabian, and in England they were like #1. People were going, that's not too cool, Second on the bill to Elvis maybe, but not Fabian or Frankie.
So what was the song that brought you here?
I Want to Hold Your Hand.
It was #1, you came?
#1. So we came. So the press said, hey, Beatles, what do you want about? We said, we're #1, man. And there's no answering that.
Are you a poet?
Well, I tried when I was a kid to write some poetry, but got rejected from the school magazine. So I became a songwriter to get my own back. Then what happened was a friend of mine died prematurely of Parkinson's in his early 30s. And we were really close. He was the guy who introduced me to John Lennon. And he was such a sweet guy. And his passing made me want to write a poem rather than write a song. I don't know why. And since then, I've sort of written poems.
Songwriting is not poetry. It's a different craft. Do you agree?
I do agree, yeah. I was persuaded with this book to put lyrics in because the guy who was editing it said some of these lyrics are poems. It was kind of the other way around. And I met Allen Ginsberg once. He said, that Eleanor Rigby's a hell of a poem. So I thought, he should know. But I do think they're different. If I'd be talking to Alan about poetry, he'd correct me when it was kind of a poem. I wouldn't listen to him, of course, but he'd try and correct my poetry. If it was a song, he'd say, I won't try and touch that. He wouldn't dare get involved with the songs.
What is it like to be a sir?
It's interesting, as my dad would have said. Is that spelled C-U-R?
Do they dub you? Do they take a little sword and put it on each shoulder?
That's probably the best bit. You know what it is? It's like winning a great school prize that you didn't go in for, and they sort of suddenly say, he's okay, and they give you this prize. And you go to the palace, and Her Majesty, Queen of England, you've got to kneel down on a little red stool for your knee, which is good, because my knee was giving me a bit of jip that day. So I kneeled down, and she takes Edward the Confessor's sword.
Aha.
Come on, Larry. Vuvum, arise, Sir Paul.
I dubbed thee Sir Paul. And yet, though, when I said to you, want to be called Sir Paul, you say no.
Well, I love the honor, but my worry about accepting it was that people would now think I changed, and I was like, whoa. The guys on my farm said, what do we call you now?
Oh.
It's like, I said, you call me Sir, Lordship.
You are a Sir. Before we went on, we were talking about growing up, and us talked about growing up in Brooklyn, and you in Liverpool. That you never forget where you're from, right?
I don't. Some people do.
You carry Liverpool with you.
Yeah, I love it. I go back quite frequently. I've got millions of family there.
Friends too?
Friends too. But a lot of family, which is breeding as we speak. They just keep on going. And to them, I'm just our Paul.
Yes, you're not Sir, and you're not the Beatles, and you're not the Wings. You're Sir.
I have a hard time impressing them.
Is that good for you?
I'm famous in the world. Yeah, I love it. Of course I do.
What do you do when you're this? Do you pinch yourself, saying, how did all this happen to me? Do you accept it? I mean, there's no one who doesn't know you. So what's life like?
Well, it's great. Life's great because this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to achieve, like you. You're out of Brooklyn. You wanted to, get famous and make money and all that stuff everyone wants to do. So I did that. So I'm not ever going to kind of say I don't want to be here. But I think what I do, I don't know if you do it, but I separate the famous me from like the private me, and that, which is fine. That works great because it's he that goes on stage and gets knighted, and he's great, And then there's me that was like 5 years old, and I remember it, and that's sort of the one I am. The only awkward thing is I go in Central Park, and I'm being this one, and they think I'm that one.
Yeah, that's the rub.
That's
right?
the rub.
And how do you deal with that?
Not very well. I don't like it at all. I said, can't you see I'm being this one? Stop it. Go away. And other words.
So you paid the price. It's a price you pay for what you wanted.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. It's not too bad at all. I think of worse things.